high order. Here's the first kicker. What some of you don't know is that Jack and Jill is also the Secret Service code name used for President and Mrs. Burns. It has been since the president took office. We are not comfortable accepting this fact as mere coincidence. The blonde woman from the CIA lit a cigarette. Jean Sterling. I heard her mutter, "Shit." My sentiments exactly. This was the worst news we'd had so far. We believe it is a very real possibility, Hamerman went on, that an assassination attempt would be made on either President Burns or Mrs. Burns, or perhaps both of them. The words were absolutely chilling to hear. I glanced around the table and saw the frozen expressions of concern. We have taken, or are taking, every precaution that we can think of, said Hamerman. There are several thousand investigators assigned to this case, and we know surprisingly little. Jack and Jill may be heading toward the White House next, and we don't have the foggiest idea why, or who they might be, or what the hell is in this for them. I was thinking Jack and Jill came to the Hill. What in the name of God for? To wipe out all the bleeding liberals? To punish sinners? Was the president a sinner in their minds? Jay, do you want to say something now? Hamerman asked Secret Service Agent Greer. Greer nodded and stood up. He looked a little pale. This is as scary as anything I've seen in my time at the White House, he said. You see, I was the first inside Senator Fitzpatrick's apartment after the killing. The same for Miss Sheehan and Michael Robinson. Each time, Jack and Jill has called the Secret Service first. They've contacted us right here at the White House. They told us that they are practicing for the big one.
On Friday night, Jack and Jill checked into a suite at the Four Seasons Hotel, one of the Washington area's best. No one was scheduled to die at the exclusive hotel. Actually, the killers were taking the weekend off, while everyone else in Washington, the police geniuses especially, stewed in their own juices. The suite was Sam's idea. He was such a closet romantic. It was so unexpected from the soldier, from any man Sarah had known before. He was deep inside her now, thrusting slowly and gently, and she was wondering if he truly loved her. She wished for it with all her being, but she didn't believe it, couldn't believe it. She was, after all, Sarah the Gimp, Sarah the Bookworm, Sarah the Bibliophile. How could he have fallen in love with her? And yet, sometimes it seemed that he had. Was that part of the game for him, too? She whispered, "It's all going to get worse, isn't it?" and hugged his powerful body tighter. "Yes, I'm afraid so. But not tonight, Monkey Face. So let's not ruin this by thinking too much about Monday." He was right, of course. He was a wise man, too. He called her Monkey Face from Hitchcock's Suspicion. It wasn't really such a great movie, but it hit the spot for them, hit their spot. Sarah couldn't help thinking how precious every moment like this was, and how fleeting. "Is this a dream, Sam? If it is, please don't wake me." "It's not a dream," Sam whispered. "I love you. Please believe that, Monkey Face. Believe in us. I do." He began moving inside her again, and she felt herself melting into a liquid force. She was choking with her own passion. She heard her own voice crying out and almost didn't recognize herself. She was joined with him in a simple rhythm that got faster and faster as the two of them came closer to being one. Jack and Jill, Jack and Jill, Jack and Jill. Monday morning, Sarah Rosen rose early to get ready for her day job. The dreariest and weariest of jobs. A perfect job for their purposes. 4:45. Damn it, she was already late. She needed to look sharp, look alert, look freshly scrubbed this morning. Somehow she always came out like that anyway. She showered, dressed, and hurried outside, where a yellow cab was already waiting at the curb. At 5:20, the yellow cab pulled up in front of her workplace, and she climbed out. She showed her ID card, and security let her pass inside. She and the guard even shared a quick laugh about her being a workaholic. And why not? Sarah Rosen had worked inside the White House for 9 years. There was one last piece in the complex puzzle. The photojournalist. He was the final player. He was working in San Francisco on December 8th. Actually, he was playing the game in San Francisco, or rather, the outer edges of the game. Kevin Hawkins sat in a scooped-out gray plastic chair at Gate 31. He loved games. It had been that way ever since he'd been a bright, lonely, underachieving boy in Hudson, New York. At 11:15, he got up from his seat to go play his favorite game in the world. He was in San Francisco to kill someone. As he walked through the busy airport, Kevin Hawkins snapped off photographs in his mind. The prize-winning photojournalist was outfitted in his usual studied, casual manner. Tight black cord jeans with a black T-shirt. A Leica camera was looped around his neck. Kevin Hawkins was only 43, but he felt like 100. He had played the game of life and death too hard, too well, too often. He merged smoothly with the thick corridor traffic rolling past on the killing floor. The clock over the airport passageway read 11:40. It was almost time. A Northwest Airlines jet from Tokyo had landed just a few minutes ago, right on schedule. Hawkins heard the first strains of a noisy commotion coming from connecting Corridor B. He kept walking ahead until he was past the point where the two wide corridors connected. That was when he saw the phalanx of bodyguards and well-wishers. He got a peek at Mr. Tanaka of the Nipre Corporation. Kevin Hawkins's adrenaline was flowing like lava from Kilauea in Hawaii, where he'd once shot for Newsweek. Adrenaline. He was addicted to the stuff. Any second now. Life and death. When the entourage was 12 feet from the busy corridor crossing, a small bomb detonated. The explosion sent a cloud of black smoke into Corridor A. Screams pierced the air like whining sirens. The deafening booming noise and sudden chaos startled the bodyguards surrounding Mr. Tanaka. It made them erratic and therefore predictable. Security teams, even the best of them, could be folded if you forced them to improvise. The bodyguards began to hurriedly move their protected person out of harm's way. They obviously couldn't go forward into the smoky, bombed-out corridor. The security team chose to go back, their only choice, the one Kevin Hawkins knew they would make under duress. They pulled Mr. Tanaka along as if he were a large, ungainly puppet. The photojournalist let them proceed about 30 feet before he pushed the detonator in the shoulder bag housing his camera gear. It was that easy. A second bomb exploded with twice the thunder and lightning of the first. The destruction was instantaneous, and it was brutal. Bodies, and even body parts, flew in every imaginable direction. Tanaka didn't survive. Neither did any of the 4 diligent and highly underpaid bodyguards. The photojournalist was tightly wedged in the rushing wall of men and women trying to escape toward the airport exits. His was just another terrified face in the stormy human sea. This had been a rehearsal. The last rehearsal. Now on to far more important things. The photojournalist had a very big job in Washington, D.C. The code name was easy enough for him to remember. Jack and Jill.
My head was uneasy, filled with chaotic thoughts. I had slept only a couple of hours the night before, and that was becoming a pattern. I showed my temporary pass, then carefully drove down into the parking garage under the White House. As I walked to the elevator, I thought about a possible attempt on the life of President Thomas Burns. A lot of people were extremely high on the president and his programs. Americans had clamored for change for a long time, and President Burns was delivering it in large doses.
So who might be angry and crazed enough at the president to want him murdered? When I met Don Hamerman in the West Wing entrance hall, I had no idea what to expect that morning. Then Hamerman stiffly announced, "President Burns will see you now." I was blown away.
Good morning. Is your Dr. or Detective Cross?
President Thomas Burns said to me. I guess I prefer Alex, I said. The president's face lit up in a broad, charismatic smile.
And I prefer Tom, he said.
He extended his hand and the two of us shook. His grip was firm and steady. The President of the United States managed to sound both cordial and appropriately serious at the same time. He was around 6 foot and he was trim at 50. His eyes were very sensitive and warm. He was already known as our most personable president in many years, and also our most dynamic. But as an independent mover and shaker, the president had made few friends in Washington and lots of enemies.
Is this a real threat, Alex, or are we just taking wise precautions? He asked me.
I think the concern of the Secret Service is definitely a wise precaution, I said. The coincidence of the names Jack and Jill coinciding with your code names with the Secret Service, that's very disturbing.
Alex, he said, I'm going to cooperate in any way I can with the police investigation. I'm not ready to die yet. Sally and I are far from perfect, but we are decent people. We're trying to do the right thing.
I was already feeling that way about the president. He had quickly struck a good chord with me.
What's your bottom line on Jack and Jill?
No bottom line yet. Maybe a morning line, I told him. I disagree with the FBI. I don't see them as pattern killers. They're highly organized, but the pattern seems artificial to me. What they've done so far is only groundwork. They enjoy the power of manipulating both us and the media. The president nodded solemnly.
I have a good feeling about you, Alex.
President Burns shook my hand again, looked me directly in the eye for a moment, and then left the room. I understood that I had just been welcomed to the team, and that the sole purpose of the team was to protect the president's life. I found that I was powerfully motivated to do just that. At 4 o'clock, I was back on the mean streets of inner Washington, putting in a few hours on the Truth School murders. I spent part of the afternoon ambushing several of the local hang-arounds who might have picked up something on the murders. Convivial street people, swooning pipeheads, young runners for the rock and weed dealers, store owners, snitches, Muslims selling newspapers. I gave some of them a tough time, but nobody had anything useful for me. Around 5:15, I found myself talking to a 17-year-old homeless youth I knew from working the soup kitchen at St. Anthony's. His name was Loy McCoy, and he was a low-level crack runner now. He had helped me once or twice in the past. Just one question for you, Loy, I said. Then you can go back to your big money business dealings.
What's in it for me?
He asked.
What you have to deal?
I smiled. You give me something, maybe I'll remember. Then maybe I'll owe you one sometime.
Yo!
He came right back at me.
Wanna know a big fat secret, detective? I don't need your markers. And I don't need much care about these murdered kids. Homicides you looking into.
He started to strut away, then he looked back at me. His dark eyes narrowed, caught mine, and held on for a second.
Somebody saw an old man where that little girl got killed,
Loy blurted out. It was what I had been looking for all these days working the street. I reached out and pulled him close to me. I'm not fooling around here now. Who told you that, Loy? Don't fuck with me on this. Talk to me, and talk to me now.
I don't know who,
he said between wheezing breaths.
Some people in the shelter be saying it. Old homeless dude. Somebody saw him hanging in Garfield. Some white dude in the park.
White man? On the southeast side of the park?
That's right,
he said.
What I heard? Now come on, man, let go.
I let him pull away from me. I finally had something to work with. An old homeless man near the murder scene, in Garfield Park. A white man. A white suspect. That was even more promising. There weren't too many white males hanging out in the Garfield Park area. That was for sure. I called Sampson and told him what I'd found out. He said he would let the others in our group know. At a little past 5, I stopped by the Sojourner Truth School again. Just seeing Christine Johnson lifted my spirits. I didn't know exactly why, but it did. I got right down to business. There's a possible ID on the killer, I told her. An older man, a white man,